If you clicked on this video and didn't read the title, sorry, I'm talking about like episode breakdowns and original plans, not the actual in-universe mysteries. But this will still be interesting, so unless you haven't watched the show, don't go ahead and don't click off yet. But if you haven't watched the show, I'm really confused at why you clicked on this video at all, because it said So if you don't know, the third season of The Owl House was condensed into 3 44-minute specials, the first of which aired on October 15th, 2022. But I'm really curious as what the show could have looked like if this wasn't the case. I'm not here to talk about, what's going on in the boiling aisles while this special's happening. I'm here to take this stock photo of a knife and divide this 44-minute special into tiny pieces that might resemble the original 8 episodes of Season 3. Now, I'm assuming 8 episodes because I'm assuming a 24-episode season because it's an easy number to divide by 3 and I grew up on the Clone Wars. But in reality, I just picked a number between 20 and 25. Maybe 21 was a safer bet. I'll go over what to change in this pitch if it is a 21-episode season, but I digress. So we have 8 episodes to go over today. I'll be taking a look at the plots and what might have happened based solely on the first special that's released so far. And, as always, these are just my theories and are probably wrong. Season 3, Episode 1, The Human Realm. In this episode, we could get a similar cold open to the one that we got in the actual special, but it would cut a little bit earlier, like right after Camilla and Luce's embrace, we'd get the title card. The rest of this episode would consist of an A-plot of Luce keeping Hunter's Grimwalker secret and her secret about Philip and the Collector, all while the rest of the gang tries to adjust to living in the human realm. Also, Luce would realize that her glyphs don't work somewhere in this episode. Season 3, Episode 2, The Door. This episode would follow the gang trying to build a new portal out of the door. We would expand on this shot of Gus because I need to know where this idea came from, but then Luce would feel down on herself but manage to hide it from the rest of the gang, which would quickly become a theme for this part of the season, or arc, if you will, which I will. In a more lighthearted subplot, Camilla would try to make food for the gang, with no knowledge of what food people from the demon realm would want to eat. Season 3, Episode 3, Today's Truth. I'm proud of this title. This episode would have covered the gang fixing up the house while Flapjack is picking around the floor and searching for something. Here we can get some of Gus's fascination with the human realm, and in a subplot we can also see Hunter and V reimagining their appearances, all while the main subplot is about Luce trying to figure out how to come out to her mom and Amity wanting to impress Camilla. Season 3, Episode 4, The Dead Rebus Society. In the cold open, the gang finds the Rebus, and then they spend the rest of the episode going to different places around town to try and solve it. Think the montage from the special, but more fleshed out, and with the same giraffe joke. In the subplot, meanwhile, we'd see Luce struggling with school, and we get what I'm calling, having not seen the actual movie, the Dead Poet scene. This is also the episode where we get the Camilla flashbacks to when Luce was younger, and she and Luce have their talk about running away and the guilt that Luce feels. This is also the episode where they decide not to tell Luce about the Rebus yet, feeding into the overall arc where people are keeping secrets from each other. Season 3, Episode 5, Together. In this episode, we'd get an extended version of the Luce Hunter plot, where they try and hunt down Bellos all over town, which ends in the same scene that has Hunter breaking down and finally accepting that he's become a part of this family. They don't tell anyone else what they're doing, which feeds into the theme, but I don't really know what subplot could go here. There's not really one from the special that fits in. But a cool parallel could be Willow and Amity working through their past trauma together, and interlacing that with Hunter and Luce's bonding moments could be a neat parallel. I said parallel twice. And it would also give us some interesting interactions between two characters who have a much bigger history than we've seen in the show so far. And if you want a subplot that's much more lighthearted instead, you could always have Camilla and V teach Gus about human realm stuff, and he goes overboard on a shopping website or something, but that might be too tonally different from the rest of the episode. And that's also a really cliche sitcom plot. Season 3, Episode 6, Costuming. This could be a fun, mostly lighthearted episode about the gang trying to find their costumes, which would be a very good contrast to the next 2 episodes. We could get some plot about Camilla keeping a secret about Cosmic Frontier, all while the gang try to find their costumes for the haunted hayride. At the end of the episode, we would get the scene where Amity asks about her and Luce's costumes, and after hearing the movie, Luce records a video that we see her record in a special. Also, there's a Hollow Knight reference in the special, which I just realized while researching for this video. Season 3, Episode 7, The Haunted Hayride, and Season 3, Episode 8, The Haunted Hayride Part 2. Alternatively, you could call these The Haunted Hayride and The Haunt of the Hayride, which I think would be cool, because The Haunted Hayride would be in Part 1. Anyway, this covers everything I haven't mentioned yet. Part 1 covers everything before the Hunter Bellos reveal, in this exact scene.
I saw you. Glyphs do work here.
You survived.
I did. Thanks again for all the help, Luce. But I don't need you anymore.
And then part 2 is an extended version of the rest of the special, the fight scene, etc. There's not a lot for me to cover here, as you just take what's written, split it up into 2 parts, and then add some more dialogue and fight choreography, and it's golden for a 2-part special. Alternatively, where you don't have 8 episodes here and just have 7, you don't make a 2-part special, you just put it all into 1 episode. You could even make it into 1 episode and throw a pure filler, no plot episode somewhere, but personally, I think that a 2-part is the way to go with this. So there it is, my pitch for the extended edition of the Owl House Season 3. It's not perfect, and there are definitely opportunities to improve what I have here, but I really like this 8-episode pitch. I also just loved the special and can't wait for the last 2 to come out. If you have your own 8-episode pitch, let me know somewhere. You can follow me on Twitter at TotallyJackEarl, where I'm also going to apologize to Maurice for delaying a Daredevil video for this one instead. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, yeah, I forgot the acrostic Easter egg. Okay, I know. That's my bad. I fully forgot. So I will retitle the original 8 episodes I split, and the new ones will have an acrostic. Probably, if I don't put one there, it's just going to farm engagement on the video from people commenting that I forgot an acrostic. So stay to the end to see if I put one there. Episode 1 becomes a new realm. Episode 2 becomes For One Another. Episode 3 is going to stay the same because it's a reference to the Season 2 mid-season finale, and I like it too much to get rid of it, so it's still today's truth. Episode 4 becomes Esoteric Puzzles. I needed to use the letter E. Also was talking about both the Rebus and school, so I'm clever. Episode 5 becomes Re and Kindling. This one's a stretch, but I wrote it down and I committed to it. Episode 6 becomes Going Spaceward, which is 2 references in 1. Episode 7 becomes On the Night of a Haunt. I would have preferred Upon the Night of a Haunt, but that's not how acrostics work. And episode 8 becomes Into the Door. It's spoilery, but I don't really care because I think it sounds really cool. Alternatively, you could call it In My World, which, as I say out loud now, I'm starting to actually prefer more, because V stays behind and because Bello sees the demon realm as his to conquer. It's up to you which one you prefer, but they both start with the letter I. So whatever those spell out. I don't know, I just spent way too long trying to figure out an acrostic around the letter T being in the 3rd slot that also made sense and wasn't incredibly pretentious. So if you have better titles and acrostics, let me know, because I made this way too difficult on myself. Probably because I didn't want to change episode 3, and I don't know what the 3rd special holds in it. Also, just for an intro, if you haven't seen these videos before, go watch the first one. It's not like this is going to be confusing if you haven't seen the first one, but you should probably watch the first one. And I'm still going to be here, just patiently waiting for you to get through it. It's not a long video, it's like a 4-page script, so just go ahead and watch that now. Alright, so as I mentioned in the previous video, this obviously is not exactly what Season 3 would hold, and plans changed when Season 3 got shortened, and so the second half of Season 2 probably doesn't even look like it originally did. But this is what I think Season 3 could look like if it was 23. I added more episodes because I could not decide on an acrostic. 23 episodes that followed the same story as it does now because we got specials. It's just a fun video for me to talk about the Owl House and also work on kind of like a writing exercise. Alright, I divided up the second special For the Future into 7 episodes. This, of course, means to hit the 23 that I've accosted myself into, that 3rd special will need to be 8 episodes, which I was kind of struggling for 7 here. I guess you could add a filler episode somewhere. I'll mention it where you can. I just didn't, and it probably will haunt me if I make a part 3 of this, but anyway, here we go. Episode 9, Not the Isles You Once Knew. I'm not married to the title, but regardless, after seeing Luce, Amity, and the rest of the gang walk through the portal at the end of the last episode, we're going to go completely outside of time and go back to what happened on the Day of Unity and slightly beyond that. It's implied that the first special, and thus the first 8 episodes in this case, took place over the course of a few months, and this episode would take place during those months. We'd open with the same thing that the special currently opens with, but instead of then having a period of time where we don't know what happens, we would go over in more detail how King hid Ida and got the Collector to unpuppify Lilith, etc. Luce and the gang, as I'll probably refer to them for the rest of the video, will not show up, and this is kind of just what happened to the members of the main cast in those couple of months. You could probably make this into 2 episodes, this is where the filler would go, but I kind of chose to just do 1 because I think it'd be very interesting to see after Luce and the gang walk through the portal, we cut back in time. Episode 10, Going Home. Going Home would open with the in-between realm sequence that we see at the beginning of For the Future, before following Luce and the gang as they get back to the Boiling Isles. They'd return to the Owl House and see what was going on all around, including the sequence with King and the Collector, and them playing Owl House. The main subplot for this episode would be Luce's insecurity about her talisman. We'd see this through Luce's conversation with Amity, just like in the special. I think also that it would be good to have a conversation with Willow, where you could then see the stress that Willow is under before her conversation with Camilla, where we learned kind of like the same thing as we did in the special with the plans as she walks away and everything. This would prime Chekhov's talisman and Chekhov's Willow for the moment of truth. Another important note is the lack of Bellows in this episode. I think having Hunter pacing in the background and having 1 to 2 comments about how they need to find Bellos will help. I think having an episode focused on Luce and the gang back in the Boiling Isles and setting up Luce and Willow's characters for this arc is really important. Episode 11, Haunted. I really think that we need a Hunter Bellos episode. The first 3 episodes of this arc are all to set up the stress that our characters are under. In the same way that I kind of set up the first 8 episode arc to be about the secrets they keep from each other, this arc is about them learning to then rely on others, which I'm guessing will play into the finale. We're going to see this with Willow, with Ida relying on Lilith for the potion, and with Luce and Camilla's conversation late in the arc. Without knowing the contents of the 3rd special, I'm guessing this is something that's going to come up, and just based on what I know about writing, I feel like it's going to happen, but it's just a guess. This episode will cover the parallels between Hunter and Bellos and how they're both haunted by their past. Bellos would see Hunter's ghost/spirit everywhere, while Hunter and Gus attempt to track down Bellos and learn more about what the Collector has done. I think if done right, this can definitely be implied to be happening at the same time as the previous episode, and it can really be what these characters are up to while Willow and Luce's arcs are being primed. In this episode, 2 main things should be highlighted: the fear that Bellos and Hunter both have, and Hunter's refusal to rely on Gus or anyone else. Even though in the last special Luce told him that he's one of them, losing Flapjack has convinced Hunter that he's not one of them, and that more people are going to get hurt because of him. Also, we need to remind the audience that Gus knows that Hunter's a Grimwalker in some way. I think that he should almost say something about it at one point, and then not, thus giving more punch to when he actually does later on. He also might want to make a couple comments about missing Flapjack, but it should be obvious to the audience that that kind of just makes Hunter feel worse. By the end of the episode, Bellos has planted himself in the other Grimwalker body, and Bartholomew finds Hunter and Gus, who retrieve everyone from the Owl House and take them to New Hexside. Alternatively, you could have them yell out, and then everyone else shows up, and then they get taken to New Hexside. Episode 12, On That Day. On that day would follow Luce and the gang as they arrive back to Hexside, and while the main plot would follow almost exactly as it did in the special, with the main group learning what happened at Hexside and then reuniting with some of the supporting cast, pun intended, each character they meet would also tell their story of what happened on the Day of Unity, giving us flashbacks into more of what happened and fleshing out that day more for the audience. Also, we're not cutting the best line in the special.
There were rocks at the bottom.
This episode doesn't have a lot of specific beats for me to hit, as you can kind of just take what's here and expand on it. We reunite with characters, we learn of Bosch's rule over the school, and we end the main plot by teasing the memory tweezer things that would be creepy and haunting in live action, but work really well in animation. But before the end, we'd cut to King and the Collector getting ready for bed, King reading the book, and then sneaking off to get Hootie to Ida and Lilith. And then we cut to credits. This will give us a tease of what's happening in the background between the Collector and King, and it shows that things are progressing. Episode 13, Memories of a Brighter Day. Memories of a Brighter Day is going to be the lightest episode from here on out, but that isn't really saying much because, you know what happens next. This is also the second episode that I've really divided into a distinct A and B plot, whereas the A plot is the memory getting, which will be changed into Amity and Luce instead of Willow and Luce, for reasons you'll see in a second. It will be more lighthearted and kind of a retrospective of sorts, and the B plot will be Hunter's breakdown, which was set up in episode 11, which is the first of 3 child breakdown payoffs. The A-plot will follow Amity, Luce, and Camilla going through Luce's memories from the Boiling Isles as they try to find the sigil that Philip used to teleport himself. Here, we can see Luce's sadness over a lot of the memories, while still trying to hide from Amity that she plans to go back to Earth and not stay on the Boiling Isles. There can also be some fun moments here of Luce telling her mom stories that we either saw or didn't see of the gang having fun together. Meanwhile, in the sadder subplot, Gus considers talking to Hunter about him being a Grimwalker, and then the same thing happens that happens in the special when Willow shows him the picture and he fully breaks down. Willow then flees, fearing she's made things worse, and is captured by Kikimora. Then, after a moment of triumph from Luce, Amity, and Camilla finding the sigil, she reveals herself, and then she's going to hit them all with the sleeping gas. We're then going to cut to the Collector's castle, where we see Bellos possess the rain puppet, and his, "oh, this will do nicely" kind of villain line. Episode 14, Escape from Hexside. Okay, so episode 11 or 12 would technically be the mid-season finale in, but I'm going to campaign here to make it after episode 15 and then before the last 8 episode arc of the show. This, of course, is because I think it's funny for people to get mad when a show's left on a cliffhanger for extended periods of time. Or I did think it was funny before Inside Job got canceled, and now I'm just sad. Regardless, I think putting a mid-season finale after next episode makes sense, especially considering how it ends, which if you've seen the special, spoilers, you know how it ends, but we'll get there. Escape from Hexside will have 2 main plots going on. There's going to be the same number of breakdowns as there will be plot. This will also be the least change of anything because I just think these sequences are really good. The A-plot here will be Willow's breakdown and Hunter's resolution. This is because I think Willow deserves an A-plot, and I think that the resolution for 2 characters' arcs, being Hunter and Willow, deserves an A-plot over just Luce's. Also, Gus is here, but he really doesn't have much to do during the resolution of these 2 characters, and he's mainly there for support. which I hope he gets so much more to do in the third special. The B plot will follow Luce and her mom fleeing Kikimora and their conversation about making mistakes. This episode is our big payoff to these characters' arcs. They learn that they can't do things alone, and Luce learns that she's allowed to make mistakes. This episode ends on Luce's staff appearing from the egg, Hunter teleporting Willow and Gus out, and no stinger about Bellows or the Collector, just one last moment of triumph. Episode 15, Your Last Betrayal. The final episode of this arc opens with Amity, Bartholomew, and Basha's fight, and Basha begging for Amity to come back. But here we can have Amity saying something along the lines of, "I know how you can help," or something way better written than that. Willow, Gus, and Hunter all find Luce and Camilla, who's firing lasers from her staff, and after some fighting, the same sequence with Hexside helping happens again like it did in the special. Meanwhile, the B-plot for this episode finds Bellows in Rain's body talking to the Collector about how Luce is back and about King's betrayal. Then, Luce and the gang successfully teleport to the skull where the Collector sees them. We get the main character Palisman reveal, shout out to String Bean, and the Collector's last line, "I want to play a new game," before a cut to credits. Ideally, this is our mid-season finale. I know it's not exactly mid-season, but like the cliffhanger here is I think a lot better than anything that you could put in episode 11 or 12. Even Kikimora's reveal wouldn't hit as hard as, this.
I think I want to play a new game.
So that's my pitch for the split up version for the future. I know it isn't perfect, but I do really like what I have here, and I hope you do too. But if you don't, tell me your version in the comments, and maybe I'll heart some of my favorites or repost them in the community tab or whatever. I don't know. Regardless, I'll probably do this for the third special because it was really fun, so consider subscribing so you don't miss that. But until then, who knows what the next video will be about. Not me. I mean, I might, but bye. Okay, by this point, you guys know the drill. And if you don't, go watch one of these two videos, or watch both. The numbers going up makes me happy. Regardless, the final Owl House episode has aired, and despite the title of this video being probably something vague and ominous, this isn't a full season retrospective. I'll probably do that at some point, but for now, we're just going to split this into episodes. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the rules or this format and didn't go watch one of those two videos, I'll be splitting the last special of the Owl House, Watching and Dreaming, back into episodes. Well, back into episodes is heavily in quotes, but it works. To make my acrostic and a 23-episode season work, I have to hit 8 episodes, which I have completely backed myself into a corner here, and this special is written like a special and not like a condensed story like the other two, and so it's kind of a nightmare, which just means that if I was doing it all again, I would put way more filler in the first series of episodes because it actually fits there, whereas in these, you can't really put filler and it's kind of just go, go, go. It's obvious that none of the specials were written for this, and I just had a cool idea that is now turned into a task that I must complete, or else Dana Terrace will hunt me down and I'll be creatively unfulfilled for not finishing another thing that I tried to commit to. One of those things is worse, and I'm going to let you guys decide which one. But let's just get started. Episode 16, Our Nightmare. This episode will follow Luce, Ida, and King as they navigate through their nightmares. I think there are a lot of places to go here, and we really only saw the surface level of what could be at the top of the special. Obviously, the special was fast-paced, and I think you can easily space this out into a full episode. In fact, I want to make it 2. Episode 17, Until We Awake. Ideally, as I mentioned in the previous video, we take a late mid-season finale, and episode 16 is the premiere to the final arc of episodes. This will allow us to do a 2-part premiere. In the 2 parts, I want to follow every character and their nightmares. Show us Willow trying to find her dads alongside some of the others, Amity searching for Luce and confronting her mother, etc. Each of the main cast have their own nightmares that could easily cover a cool 2-part premiere that can show us their character growth, where they end up escaping because of their bond with each other, where they realize that something's off about them, in the same way that Luce did in the special. But the reveal that they've been turned into toys the whole time would make it all the more heartbreaking, which is, perfect for the show. Also, I don't think Camilla should have a nightmare. Just make it the kids, Ida, and King. There's a few reasons for this, but I think that we got development between Camilla and Luce in the previous special, and it isn't as necessary here as showing the bonds the other characters have formed between themselves. The episode would wrap with Luce breaking King and Ida from the spell, and the Collector talking with Bellows and Rain's puppet body about playing his own games. This idea also allows for the next title to be Episode 18, Rain's Strings. Get it? Because they're a puppet of Bellows, and they play a stringed instrument? Get it? I'm so cool and clever. This episode would follow a main plot of Rain holding Bellows at bay, them fighting, Rain learning of Bellows' plan, and then would end up culminating in an extended fight between them, and the eye lighting up like we see in the original special. I know it seems early in the season, but I think we can let it happen because you have to remember that all of these episodes take place over 2.5 hours, max. The subplot for this episode would be Ida, King, and Luce outthinking the Collector and breaking each of his games. Nothing super deep here because I think that the main plot would already be kind of heavy, but you can set up some of the Collector stuff that will lead into this next episode. We'll leave the Collector crying as he did in the special, but the last scene would be the Eye of the Titan, just like that lighting up, because I think it's a really cool shot to end on. Episode 19, Epic of the Collector. Considering the last episode would have ended with Belos possessing the Titan, the only next possible option is a flashback. I really like cutting away from like dramatic moments with flashbacks. I don't know why, but you see it on the other one. Anyway, I really want this episode to just encompass the Collector's backstory intercut with their interactions with Belos. Give us more of a history and lore. I think framing it as the Collector telling his story to Luce, Ida, and King in a way that's kind of just a longer version of this scene from the special would work really, really well. And it could make this character really compelling going into the last 4 episodes. In the special as is, the Collector did kind of a quick switch. I think it was set up well for the time they had, but I think this could make it feel less rushed. It would also let us set up King's father for if we maybe needed to use him in the future or something. I don't know. Episode 20, The Birdhouse. Genuinely, this title sucks, and I love it so much. The letter T is there, and there are a million other options, but I think this is funny. This is our last episode before all the fighting really starts, and it's kind of going to start here, but this is the setup for the 3-part finale. This episode would encompass Luce turning the tables and telling the Collector about her, Ida, and King's story and everything that's happened to them so far. This gives us a chance for 1, emotional flashbacks to devastate the audience, and 2, a one last ride feel going into these final episodes. This episode would culminate in the same way it does in the special, with the Collector being like, hey, do you hear breathing? Then realizing it's coming from the castle, and then Luce getting iced. I think you can really just lift a lot of this straight from the special and then add a few more specifics in, and it would work really well. The subplot for this episode would be Amity waking herself up and then waking up the other members of the gang, just as Luce goes to the world between worlds, or realm between realms, or purgatory. Episode 21, Under a Titan's Influence. It's a wordy title, but it has a cool double meaning, so I'm using it. Ideally, these last 3 episodes air together, a la Weirdmageddon. Because without doing that, I think it would feel strange with how I have it planned out. You'll see. Under a Titan's Influence would cover the fallout of Luce's death, her conversation with King's father, and then her return, up until the hand starts moving upwards, at which case we would enter episode 22, Running Out of Time. So here's where my prestige for this season drops. Belos loses in this episode. This episode fully encompasses everything else in the fight, and then ends with everyone reuniting. This is why I think it only works if all 3 of these air together, because the last episode is kind of all resolution. Now, before you get mad at me and, want me to stretch out between 3 episodes, allow me to explain myself. Episode 23, New Isles. I'm going to level with you. This special was the most difficult to split up, but I think I'm happy with where it's at. Let me explain. In this special, there are 5 easy major plot points to hit in this series of episodes. The Nightmare, the Collector's Games, Remembering the Past, the fight with Titan Belos, and the rebuild/resolution. The fight and rebuild is really easy to make into a 3-part finale, though it would work better as one big special. The acrostic has screwed me over once again. But there you have 6 episodes. But after that, it gets tough. I had a Collector flashback to get us to 7, and because I wanted more lore, and I think it's something that fits, but where do you go after that? Personally, I liked to make the Nightmare a 2-part and add the other characters into it. But here's the thing. That leaves the 3-part finale either divided up kind of strangely, or it leaves us with a resolution episode. Kind of. Episode 23 is going to have 2 major things in it. A rebuilding of the Boiling Isles, and the time skip. And the way to make it work would not really be a hunky-dory episode, but some interpersonal conflict. One of my very few problems with the finale is that a lot of our main characters don't interact that much. And I'm sure if you watch all 3 specials back to back, it doesn't feel like something's missing, but in the time between the specials, it kind of does. But I think the way to solve that is to put the choice on Luce's back of what does she do next. Does she stay in the Boiling Isles, or does she go home? Home in quotes. And then we get to see the construction of the new door and all of that, and we end the same way with the time skip. Alternatively, we could have Amity ask her what she's doing next, throw it a commercial, and then come back to the time skip with the narration. But that might be a bit too mean of a fake out. But putting these questions on our characters I think could work really well and show that even though the big bad guy is gone, we still have the struggles between ourselves. And if there's a theme of the 3rd season of the Owl House, there it is. The first arc of this season was about the secrets we keep. The second was about our insecurities, and the third is about growth, who we will become, and the people that we let change us. We see the Collector change. We see Luce, Ida, and King go over who they were and who they became together. And we see the growth the other characters have gone through their nightmares and how they break out of them, by realizing what's going on through their bond together. This split isn't perfect, and that's because it wasn't written to be made into episodes. I just like being difficult and posing myself a challenge. As I go through this script and all these videos again, I really think that I'm happy with what I have here. And though obviously I wanted a full-length season 3 for the Owl House, I think the specials we got are phenomenal. And I don't think I would trade them for another season. You might disagree with me, and I'm sure some people vocally will in the comments, but this show means a lot to me, and presumably if you're still here, it means a lot to you too. So thank you for watching this video and the others if you did. As I mentioned, I'll probably make a video about the full series at some point, but it'll be a bit because I don't think I have anything new to say that's not going to be said by a million other videos on the platform. Regardless, check out some of my other videos while you're here if you would, and in case you didn't solve the actual Owl House Season 3's code, thanks for watching.